listening to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast. Welcome to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast, and I have a guest who doesn't need a whole lot of introduction in the orchestra world, but I'm really, really proud to have the one and only Bob Phillips on our podcast. It's been too long I've had the podcast, and I probably should have had you on a long time ago, but welcome, Bob, to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, super glad to be here. Great to see you, Chuck.
It is awesome to see you, and just to be able to have you here. And I know there's a lot of our audience members who are eager to hear what you have to say. So without further ado, we'll get started. But thank you so much again. And just wanted to say, I've learned so much from you over the years, and you've been a great mentor for me as well. And so thank you first off and foremost for being here and just for being that part of my my upbringing and career. And, it's been a long time.
Well, and like all teachers, you have someone that you've worked with like you that you mostly just stay out of, that's really talented. You mostly try to stay out of their way and don't do any harm. First, do no harm. But, it's been a pleasure to work with you because you're a super, super smart and talented guy. And so I've been, watched your career with great interest as you've done so many interesting things. So.
Well, thank you. So I guess for those that don't know you, could you tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up and your college and your career? Yeah. It's been an amazing career. I
grew up in a suburb of Detroit, Michigan, and I went to University of Michigan, and where I was very fortunate to get to study with a great bass teacher, Larry Hurst. Well as I was in Elizabeth Green's last class. So that was quite a thing. And then the person that replaced her, who I did my master's with, and then a lot of work afterwards, was Bob Culver. So the string pedagogy lineage was strong there. And then I got a job teaching in a little farm town right outside Ann Arbor. At least it was a little farm town then. And it turned into a big mega suburb of Ann Arbor. My high school was physically closer to Michigan Stadium than was one of the other Ann Arbor high schools. One of them's right across the street, but the other one was much further away.
Wow. We
were only about 3 miles away. And back in those days, you could look out your orchestra room window and see the Goodyear blimp go by. The games like Ohio State week or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And then, so I was there for about 27 years.
Wow.
Had a big program, built it up to we had a high school. It was, most of the time I was there, the high school was about 1,000 kids total. Okay. And then it got up to about 1,400 just as I left. And we had about 220 string players.
Wow, that's a huge percentage of the school population.
Yeah. And our big classes hadn't hit yet. They were still in middle school because as the population grew, we had even bigger classes, but we were anticipating to try to get up around 350. But I left before that. I get to see those kids get there. And so I was there, and then after 27 years, retired, and then I started a brand new string program in the town. Next town over, another kind of a farm town / small town. And I was kind of waiting for our house to sell. We were going to move. And so they asked me if I would do it, and I did. And that was great. And that's the very thriving program, a great teacher there. One of my former students, Amy Marr, teaches there.
Yes.
And she has about, 450, 500 kids, something like that. And then we moved to the other side of the state, and I went to work for Alfred Music Publishing. I had been writing books and things like that. And so I went to work as a string editor for about 15 years, and my wife was the Suzuki editor.
Yes.
Did that and then retired.
Retired again.
Yeah, retired again the funny story was I was actually with you when you were there when it happened. I had retired in May, and my last gig was going to be, I said, okay, I'm not getting off the road. My last gig was going to be ASTA of 2020.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that turned out to be a really easy moment to get off the road.
Yes, smart.
COVID hit that we were all together, and I remember, you and I and other people going,
Yeah.
"Man, maybe we should go home."
Yeah.
So anyway, and that's what I did.
Wow.
And now I'm in retirement. I mostly don't do clinics or things like that anymore. I do a few nationals. I'm going to do a keynote at Midwest this year, and I'm going to do some things at ASTA, but I'm mostly done with those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And so now I just play a lot of music. I play in a mandolin orchestra, and
That's fantastic.
I've gotten to solo with 4 orchestras this year, and playing a concerto, and I play in an Irish folk, American folk band, and
cool.
stuff like that. Yeah. So
fiddle's has been a big part of your career, I know. And can you tell us a little bit about what you were able to do with that, the style and how it impacted your program and your kids? And
so growing up, I was kind of on all sides of that world. I was a guitar player. I did a lot of things, and was involved in the folk and the rock scene, that kind of thing, or jazz as at college, kind of thing. But when I started teaching, I just felt like there's something missing. Love classical music, but I just felt like there's a lot of other musics out there that were not. And what really bothered me is that there was all this great American music that kids weren't being trained to play.
Right.
And so I started teaching. I used fiddle tunes as kind of Kreutzer etudes, if you will, for pure speed, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I started a fiddle club and had middle school kids and then high school kids. And eventually we said, maybe we should just start a group. And so we did. And then that was the Saline Fiddlers. And I had a lot of pretty famous players come out of there. Jeremy Kittle, who's played at Aston. Yeah. Brad Phillips, no relation, but a great player, and different people like that have gone on to play professionally. And so I found that the fiddle classical thing was a wonderful combination. Now, it wouldn't have to be fiddle. It could have been mariachi. It could have been all kinds of things.
Yeah.
It's just that I was teaching in a rural community, and fiddling was organic to who we were. And Michigan,
it worked.
You might not know it, but Michigan, especially in Southeast Michigan, we have a really long history of fiddle playing and square dancing as promoted by Henry Ford.
Wow.
So
okay.
All throughout where I taught in Saline, all throughout that area in Southwest Michigan, you'll see these little white old one-room kind of schoolhouses. Those were all Ford schools. And he started those, and he had fiddlers on his employed that worked at the car factories, but then he would send out once a week to go play square dances for the kids. He felt that was a very important physical education kind of thing.
I remember doing that in elementary school, honestly. They would have it in PE class. We did square dancing.
So we had a tradition like that, and then But then the fiddlers kind of got out of control, got away from me. It got bigger and bigger, and pretty soon, before you knew it, we were doing 80, 100 shows a year, and
wow,
we played the White House multiple times. We played Kennedy Center. We did a lot of stuff, but toured a lot throughout the United States and in Europe, in England particularly, and Scotland, that kind of thing. But so it was a big part of the program.
Yeah, and that schedule had to be pretty daunting.
It was. Now the explanation, though, I would say, my wife, for many years, I did all the music stuff at school, and she was the admin for the music program. She did for the orchestra program. She did all that. All our girls, as you would know because you know them very well.
Right.
I have 2 daughters that are string teachers, Becky Bush and Sarah Lenhart, and then another daughter, Katie Bowers, who was a great bass player at Indiana. And anyway, but they were all in the group as we were starting this and creating it. So, yes, we were doing a lot of gigs, but every time we got on a bus to go somewhere, the whole family was
were
on the
already
bus.
there. I was going to say, that makes a big
funny.
difference, right?
Yeah, right. I couldn't have done it if they had been into other things.
Yeah.
But, they were 2 of them were destined to be music teachers, and the other one's a math teacher, but did 2 years of music school at Indiana. So there you go.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. And then you have I know you have a bunch of grandkids now too. So you're busy with them.
Yeah, the first one's a dancer, but the other 8 are all playing. We got some string players, some wind players, and one of the middle school clarinet players just made all state, and we've got another one that's quite a composer, and he's hoping to go to music school in 2 years. And
Fantastic.
Yeah, so all kinds of various levels.
Yeah, the Phillips legacy continues.
Yeah, well, it's fun. We go to a lot of concerts. It's really fun.
I bet. Yeah, and then I also, this is the inside joke, but from Facebook and such, the purse watching is your new profession too.
Well, okay, so I'll tell you how this happened. So, been married 52 years. Pam and I were high school sweethearts. Oh. So we've been a team for forever. And we would go into a restaurant, and she'll always get up to go to the ladies' room. She'll say, "Bob, will you watch my purse?" And, eventually I said, seriously, have I lost a purse in 35 years? No. Okay. So I said, well, I'm going to document this. So I started taking pictures of myself with the purse in all these different settings. I have people come over, and I put them on Facebook, and it was hilarious. It went viral. I mean, just everybody went nuts in the music community. So I post them every once in a while still, but anyway.
It's really funny. It's really funny.
Yeah.
It's like you said, for 35 years, you really didn't have to watch it. And all of a sudden, the purse theft has just gone way up or something.
That's right. Exactly.
There it goes. So this is fantastic. And then, it's interesting to hear your story. And do you have any stories that, just of things that happened to you or things that you've experienced that have just completely shaped or rerouted the way that you thought about teaching or strings, or you have any experiences that you can think about?
Yes.
I'm sure there's a whole bunch.
So, certainly having the pedagogical background I had was really significant. Mm-hmm. As an example, Bob Gillespie and I, who are...
He's my really sensei. Yeah.
And we had much of the same training and from the same people. And so that is really important in the way it makes you think, the way you think about pedagogy. Mm-hmm. I think the best thing that ever happened to me was that when I was a senior, I had one of my advisors said, you're going to be tempted. You're going to go out and start teaching, and within a couple of years, you're going to be tempted to go to a bigger, better school. And he said, don't do it. Because he knew at this point I was a senior and I was getting ready to student teach, and they had already more or less offered me this job in Saline.
Wow.
In a brand new program. And he said, you stay there and build it. You'll learn so much more by building it. And I think that was some of the best advice I ever had, because the reason is for many years, I taught 5 through 12. Mm-hmm. And so, you get up in the morning and you go into your 9th graders and you go, man, why can't they do this, this, and this? Oh, it's got to be the fault of that middle school. Oh, I am the middle school teacher. Wait a minute.
What did I do? Yeah.
Yeah, what did I do? So you start working backwards. The longer I taught, the more I got into the mindset of fix it the first year and get it right.
Yeah.
And so I think teaching in a district by myself, where I had to fix everything, and I didn't have a lot of help at the beginning, private teachers, that we developed that over a series of years, but it was mostly just me at the beginning. Mm-hmm. There was the woman that actually started the program, is named Martha Frossett, and I came in as the first kids. I student taught when the first kids were in 7th grade. Mm-hmm. So I then developed the middle school and the high school program, and as well as teaching elementary. The other thing I think that was important that I learned is the importance of the beginners. That, to me, at one point we were looking at hiring, and I was doing about 450 kids a day by myself, and I just couldn't. It was just too many. I was like, guys, I need some help.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, they were going to hire somebody, and they came to me and said, okay, what do you want to do? I said, oh, no question. And by that time, the high school groups were really good. And I said, no question, I'll do middle school and elementary. And they said, what?
Yeah.
And I said, why would you do that? I said, oh man, what you guys, because by that time I'm in my 30s. I'm like, what you need is a young, hot conductor type that'll come in and study scores and do all these cool things for the kids and take them places. I said, I love pedagogy. I love process. I want to crank out the great kids. I want to create the great high school orchestra.
Yes.
Right? And they wouldn't let me do it. And they said, no way. Wow. And they were going to pull the elementary away from me. And I said, well, okay, I'll continue to do the high school, we'll hire middle school, but if you take fifth graders, take the beginners away from me, I'm gone. I literally threatened that, which is kind of gutsy because, you probably shouldn't threaten things unless you're willing to do it. And I don't know if I would have done it or not, but fortunately they let me keep the beginners.
Okay.
So I did beginners all 27 years.
So you did the fifth grade and then you did high school.
Yeah. I did beginner. I did the whole thing for a long time, 17 years. And then the last 10 years I did elementary and beginners and high school.
Okay. Yeah. The feeder pattern, that I have is super lucky. And,
yes, you do.
But I know other teachers who maybe aren't as lucky. And, it's challenging then at the high school to survive and to, not get really frustrated.
Well, the hard part about being a high school person is you can't teach an empty chair. If they don't get to you, you can't affect them. Yeah. And so the nice thing about elementary and middle school is you can affect your future. Yes. Whereas that's more difficult so if you're you have great feeder programs, so that's really good. And you're the kind of person I was looking for back then. Why couldn't we hire Charles Laux, man? It would have been great. I would have sent you a zillion kids well prepared, and you could have just done all the cool rep that you do. And
well, I didn't have that advice that you were given, and I moved around a little bit, and I don't regret any of it because I've got to work with some amazing people. And I talked to my guest yesterday about this, and it was just, it's valuable too. But I also, think about like, well, I could retire next year had I stayed in Las Vegas this whole time. But I think part of that answer is you have to know who you are as a person, as a teacher. What motivates you, what doesn't, and who you are. And for me, I'm a process person through and through. I love the process. Yeah. I love the pedagogy. I love all that. I don't love studying scores and doing that kind of thing. You and Jim Palmer and all the people down there in Atlanta, they're so great. I know you guys do that, and it's great. And I love that there are people that do that, but it's part of who you are. Yeah. I was not. I think I have good conducting chops. I've done a lot of all states. Yeah, it's gone well, but I'm not. I don't love doing that. That's not your first.
I love process.
Yeah.
I was teaching middle school today, and it was a blast.
Are you doing some part-time work or subbing, or what are you doing?
What I'm doing is, so I live in Hudsonville, Michigan, and in west side of Michigan, outside Grand Rapids. My two daughters are the two middle school orchestra teachers.
Wow. Okay.
So I go in once a week, and I do grand teaching. Mm-hmm. And so what I do is I go in and just work with whoever they give me. So this fall, so one of the girls had a student teacher. So the other one said, okay, you're mine this fall. And so I would go in and work with various, she'd split the class. We do sectionals, all different kinds of things. Right now, what it's kicked into is I'm starting to put S&E groups together, ensemble groups, ensemble. So I'll coach that's what I've been doing the last series of years is I coach all the ensembles and get them ready, and then they can finish it off if they
Fantastic.
want. But, so I do stuff like that, and then, but the funniest part is I'm the resident, finale / create materials guy. Yeah. So like this morning, Becky texts me and says, "Oh, Dad, we're doing this tune and this part isn't right. Can you fix this for me?" And whatever. So, and I sit down and do it. And so we make it's always a joke. Usually when they text me, they have it before the end of the day, Yeah. Or can you write a sheet like they'll do? Can you write a set of scale exercises that do this, and this in these keys? I crank it out and send it.
That's great.
It's fun. Keeps me in the game.
Yeah. Well, when people retire and they just stop, that's when, they start to lose it a little bit and are just not, it would be hard, to do that. So.
And partial days are good.
Yeah.
Because at
Right.
71, when I do a full day in middle school, woo,
Yeah.
am I tired when I get home?
You're wiped out.
3 hours is fine, but whole day, ooh,
Yeah.
I need a nap.
For sure. That's awesome. And so then you had mentioned Finale, and I know that they're taking that away. And you've been using Finale longer than I have. I mean, I know I would use it since my undergrad in version 1 with the 1,000-page manual they used to have.
Yeah, right.
So what are you going to be switching to once, or are you just going to keep using Finale as long as you can?
Most of the publishers are going to allow you to submit in whatever format
Sure.
you can, because there's really there's impossible for them to insist on one at this point.
Right.
So I did buy, because it was, cheap, and I want to get into it, I did buy Dorico.
Yeah.
And I haven't started yet.
Okay.
I have used in the past Sibelius, because when I was an editor at Alfred, I also had used Sibelius because I'm in that way. What I've done is I had just bought a new computer last year, and so I'm going to keep that on the current operating system and never let it upgrade. And I'm going to just use it for Finale. Now, nothing else may work on it in 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Because my problem is, and I'm sure with you, it's a file problem.
Right.
I probably got 10,000 files on my computer.
Yeah.
And yes, I could convert them all to XML, but it would take forever.
Yeah, they need a drag and drop batch converter is what they need.
Yeah, right.
Or some kind of script that would just let it open Finale, convert it, and then to be done, but run overnight or something and do hundreds of files at a time.
But I'm gonna just do that and then use Dorico for new stuff.
Okay.
And just go between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I installed Dorico, and right now I'm not a fan, so I may have to give it another try. But been using MuseScore and doing some good things with that, and so hopefully that will be working for me. Yeah. It's crazy though. I never ever thought I would see Finale not continue, but it's what it is. That's technology. It just moves and changes.
Well, I think the problem is it was 40-year-old architecture, and they just couldn't patch it anymore.
Yeah, they weren't really willing to redo it from the ground up.
They need to go from the ground up, and I don't think there was the impetus to want to do that. But
yeah, it's kind of showing its age, and so it was. I mean, I've done pretty much everything on Finale, and I know you had too. So it's one of those things. Yeah. Well, this has been so fantastic. I have just I've learned a lot from you. What do you see going forward as some of the challenges or things within string teaching, music ed in general? Do you have any things that you're noticing or trends or?
Well, of course, all teachers right now are talking about, and I see this myself being in the classroom, all teachers are talking about some of the challenges they're having with kids due to the post-COVID era, and also just social media / gaming / whatever, attention spans, all sorts of things. But the way I look at that is, the whole time I taught, there was always this cadre of teachers, these older teachers, whoever they were at the time, that were like, oh, they're all different and whatever. Yeah, they are. I mean, there are things that change in society. We know that. But I guess the mantra I use, and the lesson I took from that is, you teach the kids that are in front of you. They come in the room and you figure it out. And every 5 years, there's new stuff you got to deal with.
Yes.
But as teachers, we just have to say, this is a human being, and we got to figure out how to inspire them, move them, help get them to go forward.
Yep.
And we need to think less about, sometimes I think we spend too much time comparing results amongst each other. In that, like, you're susceptible to that, because in that Atlanta area, there's a lot of good books.
Yeah. I mean, and it gets, I wouldn't say, I mean, some people are competitive, but there's definitely this orchestra, and, you feel like, oh, I got to keep up with that. But, every school is going to be different. Every situation is going to be different.
Yeah. And what I'd love to see sometime and what I think we need to celebrate more at music conventions is, it's great to see those high flying groups. You've got one now that could, play at Midwest or
We're
wherever.
getting there. We're working on it.
Have played at Midwest too. But there's also a place for that teacher that teaches in a really small rural school in the middle of wherever in the country, and they're doing they're the only teacher. They're teaching band and orchestra and choir, and they're doing unbelievably good work. And I think that, sometimes we get overly focused on the end result being at a certain arbitrary standard, as opposed to having kids love, enjoy music, and make progress.
Yep.
We just want to get better, right?
Yes.
And because, where I really learned that lesson was from a great professional player. I had a friend, Tony Knight, who was assistant principal double bass of Cleveland.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We were on the same circuit, educational circuit, for a while, and I was doing some clinics, and I decided to take lessons with him because I was really interested in his approach to some pedagogy things.
Mm-hmm.
Took lessons, and the bottom line was just this. He told me his whole story of going from, out of Bowling Green to one of the Colorado orchestras, I can't remember which, to what, and all the way along he kept saying, well, I'm not sure I'm loving this. I just got to get playing a better band,
Mm-hmm.
And he said, finally I got in Cleveland, and I got the same way. I'm not sure. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
And he said, I woke up one day and I said, I got to stop playing for the rest of the people in the section and the conductor and everything. I got to start playing for me and just enjoying music.
There you go.
And he said, I did that, and he said it changed his whole life. And I think that's, sometimes we get so focused on the end result, and that we miss the moments in front of us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
There's just unbelievably funny, great things that happen on a daily basis. And, so you just have to, I think you got to keep things in perspective. In terms of the overall changes, I think as music teachers, we always have to be on guard. We're always a decision away from this going away.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
And so, we're about to embark on a lot of changes in the country in terms of education department, a lot of things. So we have to be when asked who should advocate for music education, we do. It's everybody
involved.
Everybody involved. You got to be advocates for your program, because if you don't do it, who else will? It's your responsibility. Yeah. So we all have to advocate on a daily basis. Yeah. In whatever way we can. Some people have the opportunity to do it at a larger scale, more national level or regional or whatever, and others, it's your own local community. But boy, you just go in and make good things happen, and it's just exciting to see how quickly somebody can. When you see teachers come in that have some experience and good instincts, it's amazing how fast a program can turn around.
Yes, it
just takes a year or two.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, so it's about enthusiasm. It's about, focusing on the kids that are in front of you, those kinds of things.
Yeah. I always think that, when I'm teaching, it's like I'm trying to make a difference in my kids. And obviously the musical part is important, but that community and getting them to be better people, great citizens, great lovers of music. And hopefully those are the people down the road after they have those experiences in whatever program are the ones that are going to be speaking up and saying, no, we're not, there's no way we're cutting music. We're not cutting orchestra. We're not cutting,
And sometimes, and also you got to be able to get out of your comfort zone, right? So we got to be able to try things and do things. I love trying new things, and times it worked really well, and other times, well, that wasn't the best decision I ever made. I'll never forget when I started teaching improvisation. It was many, many years ago. And I didn't really have a super strong background in, extensive improvisation. I improvised, but I didn't know what I was doing. I was just doing it, and I didn't really understand process. And so I started working with Randy Sabine, and that was the genesis of the Jazz Philharmonic series.
That's a great series, by the way.
So anyway, I had this morning class called Creative Arts Orchestra, and we had about, 35 or 40 kids that would come in the morning one day a week, and we just improvise. And I didn't know what I was doing, how to teach it. I just was trying to figure it out,
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. And I got a lot better as the years went on. I did it for a series of years and got a lot better at it. But it was way out of my comfort zone. And I'll never forget this. I had this one young lady, and there's some really great players that came out of that class. Jeremy Kittle was one of them.
Okay.
One of the great improvising violinists, on the planet. another one, Brad Phillips, was really great too. And anyway, but I had this young lady, and the first day, I didn't set up the process perfectly, so I had her trying to do a 1-bar solo, and I hadn't really set it up the way I would set it up now for her to be successful. And she kind of froze and couldn't do it. She goes, I can't do this. And then, but by the end of the year, we were going to get ready to do the concert, and Randy was going to come in and the whole thing. And so anyway, so we do, I said, okay, now here's the tune we're playing. I forget what it was. If it was Groon for the first time, or whatever it was. One of those tunes out of the book. And I said, okay, we're going to do this. And I said, but there's so many of you, we got to just do like 8-bar solos. And this girl who couldn't improvise the first day said, Mr. Phillips, I got to have 32 bars if I'm going to say anything.
Wow.
I went, I don't know if I can play 32 bars. And I always think about, how there's, could I play any of the concertos on the violin that any of my kids could play that I've conducted and all this stuff? No. Yeah. But you know what? I coached a lot of them on things like that.
That's right.
That's what we do, right? We get out of our comfort zone and you talk about music. And so, I just think there's sometimes we let ourselves get in a box in string teaching. And I think it's okay to try things. And it wouldn't be, I don't think the world would end if you decided on a concert, maybe I'm not going to play 4 big pieces. Maybe I'm only going to play 2 pieces, but instead we're going to take some extra time to do this unit on whatever. Maybe it's improvisation, maybe something, but it gives us time to do it. You know what I'm saying? So I think sometimes we get locked into that. It's got to be this way instead of just, let's turn it upside down and see what happens and try stuff.
Yeah. I mean, kids like that too, to break the monotony a little bit. And, I've done some improv in my classes, and like you, I was not trained. Your books helped. And I had a band director that I worked with in Las Vegas who I would sit into his jazz band in the mornings. This was back in the late 90s, and I learned a ton from him. But I remember just like introducing it to my 6th graders, and some of the kids who struggled with the note reading and struggled with, good form and just being able to adhere to what we were trying to teach in the standards could improvise way better than the kids who were some of my quote unquote best players. It was amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I always say that the hardest kid, if I walk into a good high school orchestra, the hardest kid to teach to improvise is whoever's sitting first chair.
For sure.
Because they've never made a mistake in their life. Their Harvard application was filled out when they were 9, and they're not going to make a mistake now.
Yeah.
But the kid in the back, a lot of times will try anything. They go, yeah, man, I'll try that, whatever. And so, I've often had kids like that were, sit in the back of the seconds or violas or whatever and become ferocious improvisers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun to see that, and it's just interesting to kids. Sometimes I think the ones that we teach forget about. Most of the people they're listening to on the radio don't read music. Most of the people, just figured it out. They have the ear, but they can't do all the theory that you can do. So it's we have to keep remind people that there's multiple talents there.
And one of the challenges we have in an orchestra classroom is that part of what makes instrumental music and vocal music work in the United States is that we have these really big classes. That's what makes it work. And that's part of our success story, right?
That gives us some power.
Exactly.
Frankly,
Yeah. Political and every other way.
Yeah.
But the other thing, and people love playing in groups, right? But most of the adult musicians in this country right now are more have a garage band style of learning and playing, and they're aficionados and they're astounding musicians sometimes. And so I think it's hard because in orchestra, the access, even though I completely believe in teaching, by ear first, and and present most things, pedagogy by ear first. And experiential teaching, heuristic learning. That being said, the access point for a lot of what we do in middle school and high school is reading. You got to be able to do it because it's part of what makes it possible for those large groups to function as efficiently as they do.
Yeah.
It's like when you're sitting around, I play in a band and we had a rehearsal yesterday and we're sitting there trying to work some stuff out. and it took 45 minutes to work this one thing out we were trying to deal with. Well, you can't take that much time with 55 people sitting there, right?
Nope.
We're kind of locked in this thing where you have to be able to do both. You got to be able to use the ear and teach that way, but you have to teach them to read at some point, because those large groups, the classical ensemble model only works if people can read at some level.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's a challenge.
That is the challenge. And the kids that struggle with that, once they get to that high school level or late middle school, that becomes kind of detrimental to them and can help, force them to lose some motivation sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they can survive. You can survive the first couple of years and not read at all, practically, but especially the first year. But it gets harder and harder as you go.
That's right.
And so you got to be able, and you have to find creative ways to address that, with our material, interventions, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, kind of looking at the last part, do you have are there any new resources or pieces coming out that you've put together that we should be looking for or thinking about? That you can talk about?
Yeah.
I know some things are not.
I've got it. Well, I did a piece this last year that I really think is cool. And it'll come out this spring.
Oh, cool.
And I'm going to, this is being 71. I don't remember the name of it now.
Well, you've only written like 3 or 4 pieces, I think, right, Bob?
Yeah, right. I'll tell you right now. Oh yeah, here it is. Yeah, The Red-Haired Girl. Oh. And it's really beautiful. It is really beautiful and cool and energetic. And Chris Berntas, who's the editor at Alfred Now, said he thought it was the best thing I've ever written.
Wow.
And I don't know if it is. He's originally a wind player. It's the bandiest thing I've ever written. So that might be part of it. But that's cool. And then I've got a really interesting project that I'm working on with a friend that I can't talk about because we don't actually have a way to. We're not sure how we're going to get it published yet. Yeah. But it's super interesting, and we've been working on it for about a year, and so that'll be coming out soon. But
that's exciting.
Yeah, I do. I'm writing about 3 or 4 pieces a year right now, which is plenty for me at this stage of my life.
Sure.
And at some point, I'm gonna hang that up too. But because I think you can, all the way through my career, I've tried to not stay at the party too long. And so when I felt it was time to move on, and don't just hang in there, just because you don't know what else to do. Right. Right. And I also feel strongly that you get to a point where when I really stopped doing clinics very much, part of it was, there are younger folk like you that every time I take one of those slots, that's a slot that somebody your age is not getting. And so I feel like you have a responsibility to turn that over, because every 5 or 10 years, there's a turnover of generation. Sure. Right. Yeah. And mine is officially kind of, out now. A lot of guys, Gillespie and I and Andy Debchinsky and a lot of people like that are our age, that are early 70s, that are kind of, we passed the mantle, and there's people in their 50s and 60s that are really running stuff, and the young 40s that are tearing it up and, doing exciting things. And I think that generational change is really, really healthy.
It is. It kind of keeps the profession moving forward,
I think so.
And, it's really fun for me to see some of the superstars coming up and just killing it at Midwest or wherever, and especially when they're former students, it's like, it's amazing. Yeah, it's an amazing feeling. But
you go, wow, they are great.
Yeah.
And I love that, watching my own daughters. I tell them that all the time. You guys are way better than I was. But, but you also have to remind yourself, when you look at those things, the era, it's like looking at baseball stats, and they want to compare somebody in the 30s to somebody now. Right. Well,
different game.
You can only be compared to the era you played in, right? Yeah. That's the only thing, that's the only fair metric. And so, with what we do, I think there's a little similarity in that, Are there a lot of cool things that people are doing now that that I never did? Yeah. Oh, you got it. But in our area, Gillespie and I and other folks like that, Gil Barnes, different people, we blazed some pathways that hadn't been
Right. Yeah.
went down some roads that hadn't been gone down before.
For sure.
And now it's time for, the people that you encourage and to do those things. Yeah. So I'm really excited about the future of the profession. I think we've got so many unbelievably smart, wonderful people in the profession. Mm-hmm. The only thing I worry about, and all the college people out there can send me the hate mail, Phillips Fiddlers at AOL.com. I worry about the amount of emphasis that the universities have to place on a lot of different things. And I worry that they're not being given enough time to focus on pedagogy and classroom management. Because if there's one thing that every single young teacher says is, oh my gosh, I wish I had more work on classroom management.
Yeah.
And you can never do enough, right? Because you got to get out and just do
it. It's hard to emulate what you're going to experience. And that's what when I was at the university, I had the string project, and I tell you, that was, there were some kids, there were some, behavior issues, and having the undergrads just have that experience before they're out in the field full time was very valuable for them.
And that whole string project model where kids get to work with kids, or at Ohio State, Gillespie has one where they get worked into the youth orchestra. A lot of
sure. Oh yeah. Yep.
Working with youth orchestra program. I think that's invaluable. Yeah. So that's the only thing I kind of worry about, is that it feels like there's not enough credit time being allowed to the string ed people to really prepare kids at the level that they would like to.
Yeah.
But that's a hard fight for all of them. It
is. There's a lot of regulations and just mandates of certain classes and certain things they have to take. But the great thing is we have organizations like ASTA and Midwest and your state organizations that provide some amazing PD, and then bring in people like yourself or whatever that can help kind of mend some of those the things that are missed,
fill some holes and help.
Yeah.
Because in some ways people have to be ready to learn too, and teachers have to be ready for it. And there's nothing that prepares a teacher for a PD better than teaching in their first year and getting their, lunch handed to them more than once.
Yeah.
You become very receptive to ideas.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then I guess last, do you have any advice that you give to teachers maybe just starting out, or I guess even veteran teachers, some words of wisdom from the Bob Phillips?
Well, I think a couple things I would say. As crazy and hard as this is to do, try whatever you can do to keep up your own music making at some level. Play your instrument, sing, do something, but try to do some music making for you.
Yeah.
And even if it's, that's hard when you're on a teaching schedule. I think the other advice is just try to stay focused. Keep your focus in the room on the kids, and read the room all the time. Try to figure out why that kid's like that. Why can't they do this? Mm-hmm. Why are they behaving like that? I mean, I was in school today and I dealt with a couple of middle school boy issues that, and I've worked with them, this particular group, enough weeks in a row now that I've kind of figured out, what the issue is with these. There's these couple of boys in particular, they're friends, and there's some stuff, anyway, but the point is, I think the danger is sometimes we get so focused on scores and teacher manuals that we forget to get our eyes up and just walk around the room. Move while you teach. Don't stand on the podium the whole time.
Yeah.
Talk to kids. Ask the kids. just ask the kids, that didn't work. You're struggling with that. Why do you think that is?
Yeah.
I mean, you learn so much from the kids if you stay focused on them. And so I think that's the biggest side. The more you can be relational and focused with them, the better your teaching's going to be.
Yeah.
I know you're a master at that.
Wow. Every year I'm trying new things, trying to figure it out, trying new assessments, trying new music, trying new teaching strategies, so for me, it's something that I don't ever want to figure it all out, really, because if I do, that gets boring.
Here's an example. One time I was asked to come into a school district and work with some orchestra directors there, and there was a younger person, very young, that they were concerned about, and all the program was very good, and there are a lot of good things going on, but this was a new beginning teacher, and they were meeting the kids twice a week at the beginning level. This was like maybe a 5th or 6th grade start, twice a week, and it was about the 3rd week of October, and they started, end of August, beginning of September. And the teacher was on page 27 of their book. And what happened was, when I went into observe her, they had gone through all this material. Now, she never got her eyes out of the book the whole time, and the kids looked terrible. They were playing everything.
Sure.
And finally, when we had the meeting to kind of talk all this through, and the reason they wanted me to come in is they needed somebody else to tell her.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I was very gentle with her. I said, I think, and explained what I think. And then apparently they said, wow, she totally turned around. I said, you could really teach some tunes just by ear at that point, but get your eyes up, walk around the room, see what's happening. And it, totally transformed her.
Yeah.
Her teaching.
That's amazing.
So, but
yeah, it's a lot of little things, and some of them are obvious, and some of them is like, why didn't I think of that?
And you never know what a child's going through.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
100%.
I had that again today. My daughter was telling me about this one kid and some challenges, and I said, oh man, does that explain some behavior? Now I'm gonna, and it also helped me because I said, I now know how I will approach this child because I understand some of the background of what the issue is. But
that's important.
Yeah, right.
To really know your kids, and if you're not there, full time, it's hard to know. And but
Elizabeth Green used to say that all the time. Talk to your kids. Talk to your kids.
Yeah. I make a real point to try to get to know them and ask them how they're doing, and then a kid comes in, you just look them in the eye and. You don't look right. It's like, let's talk for a second, and then it comes out or whatever it might be. So, it's that really shows that you care, and it helps that rapport and that trust that you have with your kids,
Well, I actually had a kid one time who this guy tried to lure him out of my classroom, and it was only because I knew the kid. This guy came to the door, and I was in the middle of a bunch of stuff right before spring concert. And he said, hi, I'm so-and-so's uncle. I'm supposed to pick him up for so-and-so. And, this is back in the days when things were a little looser with the office, right?
Sure.
This is pre a lot of the security we have now.
Oh, yeah.
And he got up and went over to talk to this guy. I thought, okay, and then I went back on the podium. By the time I got on the podium, I said, there's something not right about that. And I said, I didn't like the way this kid looked at him. Well, it's a guy that he had met the day before at a golf course, and this guy was kind of crazy, and multiple run-ins with the police, and probably nothing bad would have happened, but he was just one of those, people who's dealing with.
You don't know, yeah.
And anyway, and I just went and grabbed the kid, pulled him back to the room, and said, "Sorry, you're gonna have to go down to the office." The guy took off. We called the police. Police caught him.
Wow.
But it's just that thing of I just noticed that look in my kid's eye. I just knew that isn't right. That's not the way you look at an uncle if they were, and we didn't, in the process we didn't have a process for that. He should have gone to the office first, and that's normally what would happen.
Right.
But it just caught me by surprise.
Yeah. Back in the day, it was a lot, like you said, a lot more loose. So, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Bob, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. I know that everybody listening is going to get a lot out of this, and I know I have. So I just appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and just really appreciate all the things that you, Charles Laux, do for the profession. I mean, you've been a blessing in so many ways, from technology to pedagogy to all kinds of things.
Well, thanks.
And I just really appreciate this podcast, as well as your all the resources online that you put up that have been invaluable. There's
thanks.
so many teachers that use the videos, and
well, that means a lot coming from you. I appreciate that.
Well, it takes a lot of time to do what you're doing, and to develop the expertise, and then to do it. So, thank you for all you've done.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's something I love doing, and my heart's into it. But it's been really fun.
Yeah.
So, well, everyone out there, thank you again for listening, and we will see you next time on the Orchestra Teacher Podcast.
Keep the faith, people. Keep the faith.
Thank you for tuning in. For resources and more information, visit orchestrateacher.net.